the hunters found her now, she would die beside him. The thought echoed through Evelyn Hart's mind as she tightened her trembling arms around the massive beast lying across the damp forest floor. Cold rain drifted through the towering pines, turning silver beneath the moonlight as it fell onto black fur matted with mud and exhaustion. The creature's breathing was shallow, each breath slower than the one before. Evelyn could feel the fading warmth beneath her fingers, and something deep inside her refused to let go. The forbidden woods stretched for miles around her, silent except for the distant whisper of wind moving through the branches. No Omega should have been here alone. No one from her pack would have risked crossing the old boundary stones after dark. But then again, no one from her pack cared where she went anymore. Her pale hands shook as she brushed rainwater from the beast's face. Its eyes remained closed. Powerful, ancient, somehow familiar. The creature was larger than any wolf she had ever seen, nearly the size of a horse, its dark coat blending into the shadows around it. Yet there was something strange about it. Even now, weakened and motionless, it carried an air of authority that made the forest itself seem to hold its breath. Evelyn swallowed hard. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave." Her voice sounded small against the endless wilderness. Hours earlier, she had stood beneath the blood moon before her entire pack, while voices filled the air around her like cold knives. Weak Omega, useless Omega, a burden. The words still lingered in her chest. She had spent years trying to earn respect, years trying to prove she belonged, only to discover that some people had already decided her worth long before she was given a chance. When the ceremony ended, she had walked away alone. No one followed. No one stopped her. The forest had welcomed her with silence. Then she heard the distant cry, a sound unlike anything she had ever heard before. Not a growl, not a howl, something sadder, lonelier. She followed it through nearly half a mile of dense woods until she found the beast collapsed beside a creek. At first she had been terrified. Every story she knew warned of monsters hiding beyond the borders. But when she looked into those silver eyes for the first time, fear had given way to something else. Compassion. Now those eyes remained closed. Rain continued falling. Evelyn adjusted her position and gently lifted the beast's head into her lap. Her sleeves were soaked. Her legs ached from kneeling on wet ground. None of it mattered. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl called. Then another sound followed. Faint, distant. Voices. Evelyn froze. Her pulse quickened. The sound came again. Men shouting. Dogs barking. Hunters. The beast stirred weakly beneath her touch. For the first time, its eyes opened. Silver, bright as moonlight reflected on water. The creature looked directly at her, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to stop. Evelyn felt something strange pass between them. Not fear, not danger, recognition. Then the beast's gaze shifted toward the trees. The voices were getting closer. Branches snapped somewhere beyond the ridge. Lantern light flickered between the shadows. Evelyn's heart pounded. Whoever was coming was searching for something. And somehow, she knew exactly what they were searching for. The creature tried to rise but collapsed again almost immediately. A quiet sound escaped its throat. Exhausted, defeated, alone. Evelyn looked toward the approaching lights, then back at the dying beast resting in her arms. The choice should have been simple. It should have been easy to walk away. Instead, she wrapped both arms around the creature and held on tighter. "I won't leave you," she whispered. The hunters were almost there, and neither of them knew that before sunrise, the entire kingdom would change. The lantern lights moved closer through the trees, flickering between sheets of rain like restless spirits. Evelyn lowered herself beside the fallen trunk and pulled the beast deeper into the shadows. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain the hunters would hear it. The creature remained still, though its silver eyes followed every movement around them. Strange, she thought. Even exhausted, it carried itself with a quiet awareness that felt almost human. Voices drifted through the forest. Spread out. Check near the creek. It could not have gone far. Evelyn pressed her lips together. Whatever these men were searching for, they were determined to find it before dawn. The beast shifted slightly beside her. She placed a hand against its neck. "Stay quiet," she whispered. To her surprise, it seemed to understand. The animal settled immediately. For a moment, she forgot her fear. Her attention drifted to the unusual silver collar resting beneath the thick black fur. Rain had washed away much of the mud covering it. Intricate markings gleamed along the metal surface. They were not symbols from her pack. They looked older, royal. Her fingers hovered above the engraving. In the center was a crest she had seen only once before in an old history book stored in the village archives. A crown surrounded by crescent moons. Her breath caught. That symbol belonged to the northern throne. Before she could think further, a branch snapped nearby. Evelyn froze. Lantern light swept across the forest floor less than 20 feet away. A hunting dog barked. The beast's muscles tightened beneath her touch. Fear rippled through her chest. Not fear for herself. Fear for him. The realization surprised her. She had known this creature for less than a night. Yet every instinct inside her urged her to protect it. The hunters moved past their hiding place. Their voices gradually faded into the distance. Only when silence returned did Evelyn finally breathe again. She looked down at the creature. "Who are you?" she asked softly. The beast watched her without blinking. A gust of wind swept through the pines. Above them, clouds shifted across the moon. Silver light spilled through the canopy and illuminated the animal's face. For an instant, Evelyn noticed something she had missed before. There were scars around the collar, faint marks hidden beneath the fur as if the metal had been worn for a very long time. Her stomach twisted. Someone had placed that collar there intentionally. Someone powerful enough to restrain a creature like this. The beast suddenly lifted its head, its gaze fixed on something beyond the trees. A low rumble vibrated in its chest. Not anger. Recognition. Evelyn followed its stare. Far across the valley, beyond the dark forest, a distant tower stood against the horizon. Lightning flashed behind it. The tower appeared only for a second before darkness swallowed it again. Yet something about it felt important. Familiar. As though invisible threads connected the creature beside her to whatever waited there. The beast's breathing became uneven once more. Its strength was fading. Evelyn knelt beside it and gently rested her hand against its shoulder. Warmth spread beneath her palm. At first she thought it was imagination. Then the sensation grew stronger. Soft golden light flickered beneath her skin before disappearing as quickly as it came. Evelyn stared at her hand. The beast stared too. Neither of them moved. Neither of them understood what had just happened. But somewhere deep within the forest, something ancient had awakened. The strange glow vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only rain and moonlight behind. Evelyn stared at her hand for several long seconds before slowly lowering it. Her pulse quickened. She had never seen anything like that before. Not from herself. Not from anyone. The beast continued watching her with those silver eyes, alert despite its exhaustion. Somewhere deep inside, an uncomfortable question began to form. Why had the light appeared when she touched him? A cold breeze slipped through the trees. The storm was finally moving east, and the steady rain softened into a mist that drifted between the pines. Evelyn carefully removed her cloak and draped it over part of the creature's body. It was a foolish gesture. The animal was far larger than she was. The thin fabric could not possibly keep it warm. Yet she could not ignore the instinct to help. The beast lowered its head slightly, as if acknowledging the effort. That small reaction made her smile despite everything. For the first time that night, she felt less alone. The feeling did not last. A distant horn echoed through the valley. One sharp note, then another. Evelyn immediately looked toward the sound. Search signals. The hunters had not given up. If anything, they seemed more organized now, more determined. She glanced at the creature beside her. Why would so many people search for a single wounded animal? The question refused to leave her mind. The silver collar, the royal crest, the hunters, the distant tower. None of it fit together. She moved closer and carefully examined the markings again. Under the moonlight, more details became visible. Tiny symbols were etched along the inner edge of the metal. Not decorative symbols. Words. Ancient words she could not fully understand. Yet one phrase stood out clearly enough to send a chill through her. Property of the crown. Evelyn pulled her hand back immediately. Property. Not protector. Not guardian. Property. The beast watched her reaction carefully. A strange sadness appeared in its eyes. Suddenly the entire situation felt different. This was not a monster hiding from hunters. This was something being hunted. The realization settled heavily in her chest. Another horn sounded. Closer this time. The creature attempted to stand. Its legs trembled. For a moment it nearly succeeded before sinking back onto the wet ground. Evelyn immediately knelt beside it. "Do not try," she whispered. "You are not strong enough yet." To her surprise, the beast seemed to understand every word. It released a slow breath and remained still. Minutes passed. The forest grew quieter. Then the creature did something unexpected. It stretched one massive paw toward her. Evelyn froze. The gesture was cautious, deliberate, almost hesitant. She slowly reached out and placed her hand against the dark fur. Warmth spread through her fingers again, stronger this time. Golden light flickered beneath her skin. The beast's silver eyes widened. The collar around its neck briefly shimmered. Evelyn gasped and pulled away. The glow disappeared instantly. Silence followed. Neither of them moved. Then a memory surfaced from somewhere deep in her childhood. A story her grandmother used to tell beside the fireplace. A forgotten tale about healers blessed by the moon. Women whose touch could awaken sleeping power. Women who vanished centuries ago. Evelyn had always believed it was nothing more than a fairy tale. Yet sitting there in the moonlit forest, with ancient light lingering beneath her skin and a mysterious creature staring back at her, she was no longer certain of anything. And far beyond the trees, hidden within the distant tower, someone had just felt that same pulse of golden energy awaken for the first time in decades. Branches snapped behind her as a sudden rustle indicated the hunters had returned, their lanterns slicing through the mist with sharp, unnatural lines of light. Evelyn tightened her grip on the massive beast, whose breathing remained shallow but steady, feeling the faint pulse of warmth beneath its fur. The silver collar glinted in the moonlight, the crest catching her eye again, and she could not shake the thought that it was both a warning and a clue. The forest seemed to hold its breath along with her, every leaf and puddle frozen in anticipation. A hunter's voice rang out, low and precise, calling orders, but the words were muffled by distance and rain. Evelyn could hear her own heart thudding in response, each beat a drum of resolve. She whispered gently to the creature, "They cannot have you. Not tonight. Not ever." The beast moved slightly, leaning against her as if drawing strength from her words, and Evelyn felt a spark of confidence that had nothing to do with her own size or skill. The path ahead was uncertain, but she understood one truth clearly: running would achieve nothing. She would protect this being, whatever it was, and the forest around them would bear witness. Rain-slicked roots made each step a careful calculation, but Evelyn slowly shifted closer to a dense thicket, hoping to find cover. The creature followed, its massive frame obedient and measured. Every now and then, golden light flickered beneath her skin, subtle but unmistakable, reacting to the presence of the collar, the creature, and the invisible threads of fate that tied them together. The hunter's lights grew nearer, reflections bouncing off wet bark and leaves, illuminating patches of the forest in stark contrast. Evelyn paused, heart hammering, and scanned the terrain. A fallen log lay ahead, offering concealment. She gently lowered the beast toward it, pressing it into the shadows, careful to keep it silent and protected. For a moment, nothing moved. The only sound was the soft drip of water from leaves above. Then the lanterns appeared on the ridge, their beams cutting across the dark, and Evelyn felt the eyes of men trained in precision searching for a single target. She leaned closer, brushing her fingers against the fur once more, whispering encouragement, feeling the warmth of its presence steady her own trembling limbs. Somewhere deep in the forest, the golden light pulsed faintly again, subtle enough that she might have imagined it, but the creature's ears twitched in response, acknowledging its return. Evelyn realized that the energy was not random. It was responding to her intent, her will to protect, and the bond that had already begun forming between them. The forest seemed to stretch endlessly, a corridor of tension and expectation, but Evelyn understood that if she could guide the creature through the next steps, the moon would favor them. She spoke softly, reassuringly, repeating words she did not fully understand, yet which seemed to soothe both her and the beast. The distant voices hesitated, as if sensing the pause in the natural rhythm of the night. Evelyn felt a new determination settle within her. Every instinct screamed caution, but another, deeper instinct, whispered a stronger truth. They would survive this night together. The creature shifted slightly, lifting its head to meet her gaze. The silver eyes held something Evelyn could not name. Trust, perhaps, or recognition of the choice she had made. She tightened her arms and whispered again, "We move together. No fear." The mist swirled around them, wrapping them in a protective shroud. In that moment, Evelyn Hart understood the forest, the rain, and the creature beside her were all aligned in silent conspiracy, waiting for the dawn that would bring revelation and transformation. The hunters moved past the ridge, their lanterns becoming distant stars between the trees, but Evelyn did not allow herself to relax. Something had changed. The forest felt different now, as if an invisible current had begun flowing beneath the roots and stones. She remained beside the creature, one hand resting lightly against its shoulder. The silver eyes never left her face. For several minutes, neither of them moved. Then a sudden warmth spread through her palm. Evelyn stiffened. The sensation returned stronger than before, flowing from her chest down her arm in a gentle wave. Golden light shimmered beneath her skin. This time it did not vanish immediately. Tiny strands of light drifted between her fingers like threads spun from moonlight itself. The creature lifted its head. Its ears twitched. The silver collar around its neck gave off a faint glow in response. Evelyn stared in disbelief. She had spent her entire life believing she was ordinary. A weak omega. A disappointment. Someone destined to live quietly in the shadows while others carried greatness. Yet the light continued growing brighter. Not wild. Not dangerous. Warm. Comforting. Alive. The creature slowly leaned closer. Instinctively, Evelyn placed both hands against its thick black fur. The moment she did, the golden glow expanded. The surrounding mist illuminated softly. Raindrops suspended on pine needles sparkled like tiny stars. Evelyn gasped. She could feel something beneath the creature's fur. A deep exhaustion. A burden so heavy it seemed impossible for any living thing to carry. Without understanding how, she focused on one simple thought. Heal. The golden light answered immediately. It flowed from her hands into the creature like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. The beast closed its eyes. For the first time since she found him, the tension in its massive frame eased. The forest responded as well. Leaves rustled despite the absence of wind. Wildflowers hidden beneath the undergrowth slowly unfolded their petals. Even the air felt warmer. Evelyn's heartbeat quickened. Memories surfaced unexpectedly. Her grandmother's stories. Forgotten healers. Women blessed by the moon. Women whose kindness carried power greater than strength. As a child, she had loved those stories. As she grew older, she learned to stop believing them. Now she was no longer certain they had ever been fiction. The glow intensified. The silver collar began emitting faint lines of light that traced ancient symbols across its surface. Evelyn recognized none of them, but one image appeared clearly. A crown. The same crown from the royal crest. Suddenly the creature opened its eyes. The silver gaze locked onto hers. In that instant, Evelyn felt something she could not explain. Not words. Not thoughts. A feeling. Gratitude. Trust. Loneliness. Emotions so powerful they nearly stole her breath. Tears filled her eyes before she even realized why. Whoever this being truly was, he had suffered for a very long time. A distant bell echoed from somewhere beyond the forest. Once. Twice. 3 times. The creature's head turned sharply toward the sound. The silver eyes narrowed. Far away, beyond the mountains and hidden by darkness, the lonely tower stood against the horizon. This time, Evelyn saw movement near its highest window. A brief flash of blue light. Then darkness again. The beast rose slightly onto his front legs. Stronger now. Not fully healed, but no longer fading. The golden glow surrounding Evelyn slowly dimmed, leaving only moonlight behind. She stared at her hands. Nothing remained except the memory of impossible warmth. Yet deep inside she knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere beyond the forest, forces she did not understand had already felt her awakening. And before dawn arrived, they would come searching for the girl whose touch could change everything. The forest fell silent. Even the distant calls of night birds seemed to vanish as a strange pressure settled over the clearing. Evelyn slowly rose to her feet. The creature beside her was changing. At first it was subtle. The silver collar glowed brighter, illuminating the ancient symbols carved into its surface. Then the air itself began to shimmer. Moonlight poured through the clouds above, casting a pale beam directly onto the dark figure standing before her. The beast lifted its head toward the sky. A deep breath expanded its chest. Strength seemed to flow back into every part of its body. Evelyn took an uncertain step backward. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the overwhelming sense that she was standing at the edge of something impossible. The silver eyes locked onto hers one final time. Then the light erupted. Not harsh, not blinding, brilliant and pure like the first rays of dawn breaking across fresh snow. The creature became a silhouette surrounded by silver fire. Wind rushed through the trees. Leaves spiraled upward. The glowing symbols on the collar separated from the metal and drifted into the air like floating stars. Evelyn shielded her eyes. The transformation happened within seconds, yet it felt endless. The massive form gradually changed shape inside the light. The broad shoulders shifted. The powerful frame straightened. The towering silhouette became unmistakably human. When the radiance finally faded, silence returned. Evelyn lowered her trembling hand and stared. A man stood where the creature had been. Tall, broad-shouldered, motionless beneath the moonlight. Dark clothing hung from his powerful frame as though woven from shadow itself. Rain-dark hair brushed against his shoulders. His face was striking, sharp and regal, carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Yet it was his eyes that stole her breath away. Silver. The exact same silver eyes that had watched her from behind black for only moments earlier. Evelyn could not speak. Her mind refused to accept what she was seeing. Every story she had ever heard suddenly seemed possible. The man looked down at his own hands for a brief moment before lifting his gaze back to hers. Surprise flickered across his features. Not at his transformation. At her. As though he had expected many things that night, but not Evelyn Hart. A distant horn echoed through the forest. Both of them turned toward the sound. Lantern lights appeared far beyond the trees. Closer than before. Searching. Hunting. The man's expression hardened immediately. Whatever weakness had lingered inside him moments earlier was gone. The air around him seemed to change. Even the forest reacted. The branches overhead swayed despite the absence of wind. Evelyn suddenly understood why the hunters had searched so desperately. This was no ordinary man. This was someone powerful enough to alter the atmosphere simply by standing still. Then her eyes fell upon the royal crest engraved into the silver collar lying at his feet. Recognition struck her like lightning. The crown, the crescent moons, the symbol of the northern throne. Her breath caught. Every child in the kingdom knew that crest. Every village displayed it. Every law carried its seal. Slowly, almost afraid of the answer, Evelyn looked back at the stranger. The silver eyes met hers. And in that moment, she realized she was standing before the one man whose name was spoken across every territory with equal measures of respect and fear. Alpha King Damian Blackthorne had been the wounded creature she carried through the forest all night. Damian stepped closer, his movements deliberate yet calm, each footfall silent on the wet forest floor. Evelyn instinctively took a step back, but the urge to protect him from the hunters had vanished. He no longer needed her shield in the same way. The moonlight caught the edges of his dark coat, highlighting the powerful lines of his frame, and Evelyn felt an odd mixture of awe and relief wash over her. He stopped mere feet away, lowering his gaze to meet hers. The air between them seemed charged, heavy with unspoken understanding. Damian's silver eyes softened slightly, a subtle shift that made Evelyn's chest tighten. For a long moment, neither spoke, only breathing in sync with the quiet rhythm of the forest. Then he bent one knee, folding into a precise, intentional gesture. Evelyn's heart lurched. He did not kneel as a prisoner. He did not kneel as a supplicant. He knelt to acknowledge her. Slowly, he extended his hand, the light from the moon glinting off the subtle armor he still wore, and his voice broke the silence, low but clear. "You saved my life. That is no small thing." The words were simple, yet they carried weight far beyond their sound. Evelyn's mind reeled. She had not expected recognition, not in this way, not from him. The golden light that had pulsed through her hands earlier seemed to respond, faintly flickering beneath her skin, warm and affirming. She stepped closer, driven by a mixture of instinct and curiosity, until her hand hovered just above his. He held her gaze steadily. "Do you understand," he continued, "how much you have done tonight? How many lives your courage has touched?" Evelyn swallowed hard, her throat tight. She wanted to speak, yet words failed her. Instead, she pressed her hand against his, feeling the warmth of his presence, the quiet power that radiated from him without arrogance. Damian lifted his head slightly, eyes scanning the surrounding trees as if acknowledging the danger that had passed but remained nearby. Then he focused back on her, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. "You are remarkable," he said simply, and in that moment, Evelyn felt the enormity of the night, the forest, the creature he had been, and the man before her. All of it converged into one undeniable truth. She had met someone who saw her in ways no one else ever had, who recognized her courage, her intent, and her heart. The rain had slowed, leaving a delicate mist that clung to the trees and hung in the air around them. Damian finally rose, still holding her gaze, and gestured toward the path leading deeper into the forest. "Come," he said. "There is much you do not yet know, and I wish to show you." Evelyn hesitated only a moment before taking a careful step forward, hand still in his. Each motion was measured, deliberate, yet accompanied by the unspoken understanding that the night had shifted, that the roles of protector and protected had changed, and that together they would navigate the unknown. Around them, the forest seemed to hum in quiet approval, the moonlight casting a silver path ahead. For Evelyn, every breath carried the certainty that she had just taken her first steps toward a destiny far greater than she had ever imagined, guided by the very being whose life she had saved. The path wound deeper into the forest until the trees began to thin and the distant silhouette of the ancient tower became visible between the drifting mist. Evelyn walked beside Damian in silence, her mind struggling to keep pace with everything that had happened. Only hours ago, she had been a rejected Omega wandering alone beneath the blood moon. Now she was following the Alpha King himself through a hidden part of the kingdom that no map had ever shown her. The tower stood atop a rocky rise surrounded by silver-leafed trees that seemed to glow beneath the moonlight. As they approached, Evelyn noticed strange symbols carved into the stone foundation. They matched the symbols she had seen on the silver collar. Ancient, elegant, powerful. Damian stopped before the entrance. For a moment, he simply stared at the weathered structure. Something unreadable passed through his expression. Memory, regret, hope. Then he pushed open the heavy wooden door. Inside, hundreds of candles illuminated a circular chamber lined with shelves of old books and scrolls. The scent of parchment and cedar filled the air. At the center of the room stood a stone pedestal. Resting upon it was a crystal sphere that emitted a faint silver glow. Evelyn stepped closer. The moment she entered the room, the crystal brightened. She froze. Damian noticed immediately. His silver eyes narrowed with quiet certainty. "I was afraid of this," he said softly. "And yet I hoped it was true." Evelyn looked at him. "What is happening?" Damian walked toward the pedestal. For generations, the rulers of the Northern Throne protected a secret, a prophecy older than the kingdom itself. His voice echoed through the chamber. It spoke of a healer born beneath a fading moon, a woman whose gift would disappear from the world for centuries before returning when the realm needed her most. Evelyn's heartbeat quickened. "You think that is me?" Damian shook his head slowly. "I do not think. I know." The crystal suddenly pulsed with golden light, the same light that had appeared in her hands. Symbols emerged across its surface like living stars. Evelyn stared in disbelief. She had never seen anything respond to her presence before. The room itself seemed awake now. Ancient books trembled slightly upon their shelves. Dust swirled through shafts of moonlight. The crystal continued, glowing brighter. Damian stepped closer to her. "When you touched me in the forest, the seal protecting your power broke." Evelyn lowered her gaze to her hands. Faint traces of gold shimmered beneath her skin. "My grandmother used to tell stories about moon healers," she whispered. "I thought they were only stories." "Most people did," Damian replied. "That was the point. Some truths were hidden to protect them." Silence settled between them. Then Evelyn remembered something. "You said you hoped this was true." Damian's expression softened. For the first time since she met him, the Alpha King looked less like a ruler and more like a man carrying an impossible burden. "Because for years I have searched for answers," he said quietly, "and every path led back to a healer whose name had been forgotten." The crystal flashed once more. This time a single image appeared inside its glowing center, a crown surrounded by golden light. Both of them stared at it. Neither spoke. Yet somewhere beyond the tower walls, far across the sleeping kingdom, Forces hidden within the shadows had already sensed the prophecy awakening, and for the first time in centuries, they were afraid. The crystal's glow slowly faded, but the image remained burned into Evelyn's memory. A crown surrounded by golden light, a symbol of destiny, a warning, a promise. The chamber fell silent except for the soft crackle of candle flames. Damian stood beside her, his silver eyes fixed on the pedestal as though he had waited years to witness this moment. Then a distant bell echoed through the tower. Once, twice, 3 times. The sound seemed to travel across the entire kingdom. Damian's expression immediately changed. The quiet relief in his eyes vanished, replaced by the calm focus of a king. He turned toward one of the narrow windows overlooking the valley below. Dawn was approaching. The first traces of pale blue light stretched across the horizon. Evelyn joined him. What she saw stole her breath. The capital city shimmered in the distance like a sea of silver lights beneath the fading stars. Towers rose above the morning mist. Bridges crossed winding rivers. Banners bearing the royal crest fluttered from stone walls that stretched for miles. It was larger than anything she had ever imagined. "My people believe I disappeared 3 days ago," Damian said quietly. "Many have already assumed the worst." Evelyn looked at him. "What happens now?" Damian remained silent for a moment. Then he smiled. Not the smile of a ruler. The smile of someone who had finally found hope after a very long search. "Now I return home." He turned toward her. "And you come with me." Evelyn blinked. "Me? Especially you." The answer came without hesitation. Before she could respond, the golden light beneath her skin flickered once more. This time a faint symbol appeared along her wrist. Delicate, beautiful, a crescent moon woven through strands of light. Evelyn stared at it in amazement. Damian noticed immediately. His expression grew thoughtful. "The mark has awakened sooner than expected." "What does it mean?" she asked. "It means the prophecy is moving faster than anyone predicted." A sudden gust of wind swept through the chamber. Candle flames danced wildly. Somewhere far below, a horn sounded from the direction of the capital. Then another answered. And another. Messages traveling between watchtowers. News spreading across the kingdom. The Alpha King had been found. Damian extended his hand toward her. The same hand she had once reached for in the darkness of the forest. Evelyn looked down at it, then at the growing sunrise beyond the window. Only one night had passed since she left her pack believing she was unwanted and forgotten. Now the future stood before her in ways she could never have imagined. Slowly she placed her hand in his. Warmth spread through the mark on her wrist. The golden symbol shimmered softly. Damian's silver eyes met hers. "Whatever comes next," he said, "you will not face it alone." Together they walked toward the tower entrance as dawn broke across the kingdom. Far beyond the hills, hidden within shadows deeper than the fading night, an unknown figure watched a glowing map covered in ancient symbols. The moment the mark appeared on Evelyn's wrist, one symbol suddenly blazed with golden light. The figure slowly smiled. "The moon heir has awakened," a voice whispered into the darkness. "And the game has finally begun."